I have to say that, and if you're a Christian, you already know this, life with God is always a shocking thing. It always goes against the grain, the human nature to be Christian. The standards are enormously higher. We can never meet them. We're always failing. You live a life basically of failure, no matter how well you do, how well you try to obey. It's always short of the standard, because the standard's infinite. And quite frankly, that should make all of us just quit God, because it's a life you just can't live. Not only that, but, and this is where I'm going to get into the stuff that I've learned, the real goal of the spiritual life has a zippo to do with morality, works, ritual, emotion. God is literally transforming our thinking into His own sons. That's why Christ came. I mean, He came to pay for sins, but it was a multi-purpose thing, as everything with God. The idea was to have infinity run inside finity, so that it wouldn't be a compromise to either side, to be so different. I mean, when a very rich person marries a very poor person, there's a big strain, because the two backgrounds are different, the two people are different, they don't have the same customs. It's a big strain on the relationship. And it's the biggest strain of all to know that there's this infinite God who made you, who can squash you like a gnat in a nanosecond. And it makes for a very tense relationship all the time. So I don't know, if you're an atheist or something, just know that life for us Christians on the inside of our souls is horrendous. And not only that, but we have the standard now of getting Christ's own thinking in us. And as it says in 2 Corinthians 10:5, I think, I'm laying on the floor and I don't have my Bible on me. Bring every thought into captivity to Christ. Now, that can't be done. It's not humanly possible. So we are basically required to live a supernatural life 24/7. That's what the filling of the Spirit is about, which you cannot feel. And that's why 1 John had to be written, so he could tell them how to know if they were in the Spirit or not. And if they were sinning, they used 1 John 1:9, because then they'd know they weren't in the Spirit. And then they're back in the Spirit between sins. So it's not something you can feel. It often seems hallucinogenic. That's why you need the Bible, so that you can assure yourself you're not hallucinating. And of course, then you have to know your Bible very well, because how do you know if you're misreading it? How do you know if you're misusing it? It's like 3,000 pages. And you have to know it instinctively. You have to know it in your sleep. It has to actually become the thought pattern of your soul. Well, that's impossible too. Everything about our lives is impossible. Now, why did God do this? He did it because He doesn't want to force Himself on us. He did it because He could have just as easily made it easy on us and taken away our free will or circumscribed it and just bing, okay, now you have Christ thinking in your head like a library. He could have done that. He can always do that. But in His thinking, it's like, okay, I love everybody, because He's absolute love. It's one of His characteristics. It doesn't matter if the object's no good. Okay, and it's not impersonal at all. Whatever you are, He loves you for that very reason. Okay? It's not a merit question. It's a nature question. It's you, so He loves you. And that's absolute love. It doesn't even need an object. So this absolute love says, well, I'm making these free will persons because I love them, so I want them to be free. And instead of just doing it the easy way, I want to make it as hard as it can be on me, because I just like it that way. Love loves to make it hard on the self. That's how love is. And God, being absolute love, makes it absolutely hard on Himself. And the other side of that coin is, what if we don't want to have rapport with him, with this infinity Christ thinking cycling in our heads. We might not want that, or we might only want so much of it. So however much or however little we want, that's what we're going to get. And really, hell only exists because people want nothing of God. I want to cover two of the most important things I've learned about God in my whole life. The first will sound like a bad thing, but it isn't. God doesn't have to have things be this way. He can wipe out everything like you erase a hard drive so that nothing would ever exist from the beginning at any moment he wants. He can wipe us all out if he wants. And what that tells you that you should be happy about is it means he wants you. You're here because he wants you to be. I will never leave you nor forsake you, he says. I think that's in Isaiah 45 somewhere. That to me is the greatest security of all, because I look at myself and I think, I can't even stand me. How can God? Well, because the Lord paid for me on the cross. And I really have God's righteousness now so I can have a relationship with him. It's not religion. It's what God does for us, not what we do for God, obviously. No matter how big he made us, what can we do for him? What can you do for infinity? And if you're a poor person married to a rich person, what do you give them for their birthday? A shoestring, because they got everything else. That's the same thing here. So he doesn't love us because of our abilities or lack thereof. He just loves us. And to me, the biggest thing about that is I have the comfort, and I live on this. I have the comfort of knowing that every moment I breathe, I'm breathing because he wants me to. So he's not stuck with me. He doesn't have to put up with me. But the me can be anybody. So if you're ever feeling like bad, about how you are compared to someone else or compared to God, just know that God isn't thinking that way of you. You're breathing because he really wants you to be alive. And he'll never change his mind, or he wouldn't have given you birth in the first place. And the best part about that is he feels the exact same love that he has for Christ, for you and me and the guys in hell. So there's no less love for them. But they don't want him, and that's the only reason they're there. Concerning sin, because they don't believe in me. John 16:9. All right, the second thing that's the most important lesson I've had in my life about God. God is being omnipotent and can wipe us out at any minute and doesn't want to, can just in the exact same manner turn us into gods in the next nanosecond if he felt like it. Omnipotence means omnipotence. And what I'm finding out is that Christianity, like everybody else, sells the Bible short. Doesn't really take it seriously when it says certain things, but should. Like when it says in John 10:34, I said ye are gods. That's a quote of Psalm 82:6. You'll hear a lot of talk in Christian circles poo-pooing that idea. And of course there are some sects within Christianity that have doctrines that men can become gods of themselves. That's not what this is. It's God being God at his level, should not tolerate, does not have to tolerate, put up with anything, and therefore doesn't have to put up with any creatures he makes being less than him.